In America, we love calling our league winners world champions. Champions, the World Series of Baseball, the NBA World Champions. We build massive stadiums. We bring the entire country to a standstill for the Super Bowl. Over 100 million viewers. To us, that feels like the absolute peak. But once every 4 years, the planet reminds us what a truly global event looks like. Half the world's population drops everything to watch one single game. No commercial breaks every 2 minutes, no timeouts, 90 minutes of uninterrupted drama, where it's not just a trophy on the line, it's the pride of an entire nation. This isn't just sports, it's geopolitics in shorts. It's a religion. This is the FIFA World Cup, or, as the rest of the globe calls it, simply the World Cup. And to understand how this game conquered the planet and why it's going to absolutely take over the US, Canada, and Mexico in 2026, we need to go back to a time before billion-dollar contracts and global television broadcasts. Meet Jules Rimet, a Frenchman, the president of FIFA, an organization that, back in the 1920s, didn't mean a whole lot. The sport is already popular, but it's trapped inside the Olympic Games, strictly limited to amateurs. Rim decides, the professionals need their own tournament. He dreams of a cup that can unite nations barely recovering from the First World War. 1930, the first ever World Cup. And right away, the first problem. Where do you host it? Rimet picks Uruguay. They were the reigning Olympic champs, celebrating their centennial, and they promised to pay everyone's travel expenses. But for Europeans, Uruguay was the edge of the earth. 3 weeks on a ship, no airplanes. A lot of national teams flat out refused to go. Ultimately, Jules Rimet packs the trophy in his own suitcase, boards the transatlantic ocean liner Conte Verde, and sails off with the national teams of France, Belgium, and Romania. They practiced right there on the deck. Picture this: the future stars of world soccer, running around deck chairs, trying desperately not to kick the ball into the ocean. Now, here's a fun fact for the American audience. The US national team went to Uruguay too. The Americans sent a squad mostly made up of recent British immigrants playing in an East Coast pro league. The French dismissively called them the shot putters because the Americans were so big and physically imposing. And guess what? Team USA made it all the way to the semifinals and finished third. To this day, that remains the best result the American men's team has ever had in World Cup history. The 1930 final, Uruguay versus Argentina. The tension was so thick, fans were frisked at the gates to confiscate revolvers. The arguing started before the whistle even blew. The teams couldn't agree on whose ball to use. They ended up playing the first half with an Argentine ball and the second half with a Uruguayan one. Uruguay won 4-2, and the next day in Argentina, an angry mob stoned the Uruguayan embassy. And just like that, the tournament was born. Beautiful, chaotic, and unbelievably emotional. The 1934 and 1938 tournaments took place in Europe under the growing shadow of fascism. Mussolini used the Italian tournament as a propaganda tool. Soccer started showing its dark side. Politicians realized that winning on the pitch meant power over the minds of the people. And then World War II broke out. The World Cup was canceled for 12 years. During the war, the original World Cup, a solid gold statuette of the ancient Greek goddess Nike, known as the Jules Rimet Trophy, was in grave danger. The Nazis were looting valuables. FIFA's Italian vice president, Ottorino Barassi, secretly smuggled the cup out of a bank vault in Rome. Where do you hide the most coveted sports prize on the planet? In a shoebox, under his bed. The trophy survived the war because the Gestapo officers searching his house never thought to look under the old bureaucrat's bed. The tournament was reborn in 1950 in Brazil, and it delivered the greatest upset in sports history. arguably even bigger than America's Miracle on Ice in 1980. The English national team, who thought they were the kings of soccer since they invented it, played the USA. The American squad was a bunch of semi-pros, teachers, hearse drivers, dishwashers. The bookies had the US at 500 to 1 odds. America won 1-0. In England, the newspapers assumed the telegram with the score was a typo, and some actually printed that England had won 10 to 1. Meanwhile, in the US, the news barely made a ripple. Nobody cared about soccer back then, but for Brazil, this tournament became a national trauma. In the final, Brazil played Uruguay at home in the brand new Maracanã Stadium in front of 200,000 spectators. All they needed was a tie. They lost 2 to 1. That day is known as the Maracanazo. A wave of suicides swept the nation. Brazil even permanently changed the color of their uniforms. They abandoned the cursed white kits and put on those iconic yellow jerseys the whole world knows today. Now, here's a story straight out of Hollywood. 1966. The World Cup is set to be hosted in England. Just months before kickoff, the Golden Goddess, the Jules Rimet trophy, is stolen right out of a London exhibition. The police are panicking. Scotland Yard is baffled. FIFA is horrified. Who's going to save Britain's reputation? An ordinary London mutt named Pickles. He was out for a walk with his owner and sniffed out the trophy, wrapped in a newspaper under some bushes in South London. Pickles became a national hero, starred in a movie, and got a lifetime supply of dog food. England, by the way, went on to win their first and only World Cup that year. Coincidence? If the World Cup is a religion, Pelé is its first prophet. In 1958, a 17-year-old Brazilian kid announced himself to the world. He won 3 World Cups, a record that stands to this day. By 1970, the tournament was being broadcast in color, and the world finally saw Brazil in all its yellow and green glory. This was a team that turned a sport into an art form. Under FIFA rules, a team that won the cup 3 times got to keep the statuette forever. So Brazil took the Golden Goddess home. Sadly, it was stolen again in Rio in 1983, and this time melted down for gold. Pickles wasn't around to save it. In its place, FIFA created a new trophy, that solid gold globe held up by 2 human figures that they hand out today. It weighs over 13 pounds of solid 18-karat gold. You can't keep it. Winners only get a gold-plated replica. The original always goes straight back to a vault in Switzerland. But to truly understand the nuances and the raw passion of the World Cup, you have to understand one specific match. 1986. Argentina against England. It was only 4 years after the Falklands War between these two nations, a war Argentina lost. Enter the Argentine genius, Diego Maradona. In this match, he scores 2 goals that go down in history and perfectly define the essence of soccer. First goal, Maradona jumps up alongside the English goalkeeper and punches the ball into the net. The referee misses it. The goal stands. Maradona later calls it the hand of God. Half the world calls it despicable cheating. Argentines call it divine retribution for a war. Just 4 minutes later, Maradona gets the ball in his own half. He dribbles past half the English national team single-handedly, running almost 60 yards, and scores. It is officially the goal of the century. That is the World Cup, the greatest fraud and the highest art, separated by exactly 4 minutes. Europe and South America dominated the sport, but FIFA knew, to truly conquer the globe, they had to take the final, most lucrative, and most stubborn frontier, the United States of America. In 1994, the World Cup comes to the US. American media was skeptical. How can we watch a game that might end in a 0-0 tie? But the unbelievable happened. Americans love a spectacle. The massive NFL stadiums were perfect for it. The 1994 World Cup still holds the absolute record for total attendance in tournament history, almost 3.6 million fans. And that was with only 24 teams playing, not the 32 we saw later. That tournament changed everything. FIFA's condition for letting the US host was the creation of a professional league. That's how MLS, Major League Soccer, was born. Soccer had finally planted its roots in American soil. So, how does it work? This isn't an American sports franchise model where the same teams play every single year. This is ruthless natural selection. The process starts 3 years before the actual tournament. Over 200 nations, that's more than the member states of the UN, try to qualify. Tiny Caribbean islands and European superpowers, all battling it out. Only the absolute best make it to the finals. For a month, the tournament is split into 2 halves. First, the group stage. You play 3 matches. Every single point is worth its weight in gold. One wrong move, and your country is flying home. Then, the knockout stage. You lose, you're out. If it's a tie after 90 minutes, you get extra time. And then, the cruelest procedure in all of sports, the penalty shootout. A penalty shootout in soccer is like flipping a coin over the edge of a cliff. It is psychological torture. Players making millions of dollars a year suddenly can't strike the ball properly because their legs are shaking so hard. Italian superstar Roberto Baggio missed his penalty in the 1994 final in Pasadena, handing the cup to Brazil. That miss still haunts his nightmares to this day. The World Cup continues to evolve. In 2022, the tournament was held in the Middle East, in Qatar for the first time, and played in the winter for the first time. It was a tournament of massive money, high tech, and deep controversy. But on the pitch, it gave us what is arguably the greatest final in history. France versus Argentina. Kylian Mbappe against Lionel Messi. A battle of generations. Argentina won on penalties, and Messi finally closed the loop, proving his absolute greatness. That single match was watched by 1.5 billion people. Half the US population might not know who the Super Bowl MVP is, but every single kid on the streets of Mumbai or New York knows exactly who Messi is. And now, we stand on the threshold of a new era. 2026. The World Cup comes back to North America. And this time, it's going to be absolutely unprecedented. First, the geography. 3 host nations, the US, Canada, and Mexico. Second, the scale. FIFA has expanded the tournament. Instead of 32 teams, there will be 48. That means more matches, more drama, and more fans crossing borders than ever before. The US is rolling out its best, most high-tech NFL stadiums. The final will be held at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Mexico will become the first country in history to host the tournament 3 times. Its legendary Azteca Stadium has witnessed the triumphs of both Pelé and Maradona. Canada will be hosting matches for the very first time. For the American audience, this won't just be a novelty act like it was in '94. Soccer in the US has grown up. Messi is playing in Miami, packing stadiums full of A-list celebrities. The US men's national team isn't made up of amateurs anymore. These are young stars playing for top European clubs in Italy, England, and Spain. In 2026, America isn't just providing the venues. America is showing up for a fight. What is the FIFA World Cup? It is 32, soon to be 48 nations, bringing their culture, their songs, and their hopes to one place for a single month. It's a tournament that has literally stopped civil wars, like the Ivory Coast team did in 2005. It's a tournament where tiny Iceland, with a population of just 300,000, can take the pitch against global giants. In a world that feels increasingly divided, the World Cup remains the only language that absolutely everyone understands. The rules are simple. A rectangular pitch, 1 ball, 2 nets, and no armor. Just pure passion. Get ready, America. In 2026, the greatest show on earth is knocking on your door. And trust me, it's going to be louder than any Super Bowl.